Hello and welcome once again to another episode of CasualCraft with me, your host RedRipz, and joining me tonight on Korhal's Sky Island, I believe this map is. We're going to have the Red Terran Saber. He's in Diamond League, and he'll be giving the GLHF, just like his good opponent here in the top right-hand corner of the map, the Blue Protoss Wartooth. Yeah, I like these guys' names. These are good. These are good, strong fighting names. Yeah, well, the first thing I can say today is that it is absolutely boiling where I am today. I don't know if you've picked up already from my accent, but I'm from England, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. And yeah, it's absolutely disgustingly hot here today. So I do kind of wish that I was actually here on this map with these two players, as it actually looks considerably cooler. Or maybe Neoplanet S or something like that. I'm doing my best now to learn map names as well, since yesterday I was so completely messed up and managed to call Acheron Waste Neoplanet S. So yeah, I'm going to hopefully be getting over that one pretty soon. Now, initially out of both players, we're not really seeing anything particularly out of the blue, which is the usual sort of, you know, supply first, getting out probes and SCVs. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. Both players are in Diamond League, so we should be seeing some fairly reasonable builds out of these two. You know, nothing sort of too out of the ordinary and weird. I should hope anyway. So we're going to be seeing a barracks down first. That isn't actually on the front line, so he's not intending to wall in, although I guess that is more common against Zerg players. And at the bottom, we're having a refinery here from Saber, who will be, looks like, I'm not sure what he's going to be doing yet. Meanwhile, of course, we've seen the scouting probe coming out from Wartooth here. He's he should be able to scout this and maybe get some information about where the Terran player is going. At this stage, it's pretty difficult to really say because all he's built is a single barracks. Although that isn't a command centre first build, so I guess he's not going straight into that. Although we'll see. Now, next up, of course, from Wartooth. Now we're seeing the gateway out first. This could well be some sort of gateway expand build. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the sort. Orbital command coming down now from Saber in his base. All very nice. Now, this map, I'll be honest, Korhal's Sky Island is one of the most bizarre maps I've seen on ladder. These two spawns that we're looking at the moment, in the bottom left and the top right, are both relatively normal comparatively. You've got your single ramp here at the front. You've got a little bit of a secondary wall off there, and then obviously you've got your third base, or down there, or perhaps up here. And it's exactly the same, obviously mirrored at the other end. However, in the opposite corners, which by the way are also spawn points, immediately out the front of the base, you've got two little bits to wall off, where you've got your third and fourth on either side, and then on higher ground you've got a natural. I remember the first time I saw this, this map just made me go with complete just like, what the fuck is this? So yeah, so immediately out of the Terran player Saber here, we are going to be seeing the command center coming down second here in his second base. So yeah, we're going to be seeing a macro game out of these two players, it looks like today, and this should therefore be quite interesting to watch. Although we are seeing we've gone gateway first with Cybercon Wargate research, although he's not actually bothering to chrono boost it out at this. Oh no, sorry, his chrono boost ran out. He must have over chrono boosted on his probes. So I guess this could feasibly be some kind of 4-gate. I mean, it's the right sort of stage, except he's just not bothering to thing it. Actually, he's also not built the Zealot though. He's just gone straight into the Stalker, which isn't typical. There we go, yeah, there we go. Of course, we're getting the expansion down now from Wartooth here in his second base. Here, and this is going to be a macro game, like I said. I was ready to be surprised if it was some sort of warp gate, especially since he's not chrono boosting out his warp gate type tech thing. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing any particularly early pressure out of either players here. We've got the first Reaper out, of course, who's doing a little bit of scouting at the front, but he's not really going to be doing that much at this stage of the game, I don't think, for Saber. It's mostly just for scouting information, as the Stalker should be able to quite happily chase him away with the aid of the Mothership Core, of course. Now, immediately in the Terran's base, we're starting to see Widow Mines coming out now that he's got his factory down. And yeah, it's got a tech lab on as well on the barracks there. Should be seeing stim out of that before long, or possibly combat shields or something of the sort. Yep, straight away stim packs down. 2 more barracks coming down now behind the expansion, which should be fully up and running now. Here we go, and also a bunker down at the front for the Terran. So he's just going to bunker down, hold the line, and get his economy up. Is essentially the crack here. Now behind the Terran here, we have the Wartooth is actually slightly behind with his second base here, which is quite unfortunate for him. Although he did delay that for slightly earlier Stalkers to help him defend. So hopefully he should be able to come back out of this, although it's really difficult to tell at this stage who might be ahead. Both players are just sort of building up stuff, although I guess technically the Terran's ahead since he got his second base down slightly earlier than Wartooth here, our blue Protoss player up at the top of the map. Now this little probe here is coming out. I'm not sure if this is for some sort of Scouting mission, yeah, he looks to be. Perhaps he's going to be sticking down some additional pylons, something of the sort. We're just going to be checking out bases, just see if there's any proxies, anything like that. It looks like with the pathing here on that little probe. Meanwhile, the Reaper's going to be looking around for third and fourth bases for Saber there. Yeah, so I'm absolutely sweating my tits off today. Not that I have much in the way of boobies, which is really, really unusual for my, especially for my part of England. I'm up north, where we typically don't really see much in the way of any sort of temperature. I mean, if any of you Game of Thrones fans, we're northerners. Basically, where I'm from, it's always bloody cold in Newcastle. So yeah, that's essentially the crap. We've even got a big Great Wall that's keeping out the Scottish people. Although that has fallen down for the most part now. Google the Great Wall of well, no, it's Hadrian's Wall. Actually, it's not the Great Wall. So the Great Wall of Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall is what you want to Google there if you're genuinely interested, or really probably don't give a shit. Now we're seeing more mules come down. We're seeing additional reactors coming down at the Terran player Saber here, as well as some additional add-ons. We've seen a starport come out and a factory. What else are we getting? We're finishing up Stim Pack now, and with the 2 extra barracks, and what we're getting, 3 reactors down. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be really pumping out the Marines here for Saber, which is fairly Terran as things go. Meanwhile, the Observer has now come into his main base. That did look like he might have been spotted by the Marines, although he hasn't actually chased that up to scan it. So we might not be seeing that fall quite yet. However, it does look like he's spotted it, has he? No, he's just moving down one of his Marines. That's all very fun. Now, meanwhile, of course, he's getting his 3rd base down, so I'd imagine he'd be moving this over to here, as he's planted that pretty close there for an easy 3rd. This does put him slightly behind in terms of economy at this stage, just because obviously we've got full bases out here now and things, whereas this base is still only half SCV'd. Meanwhile, up in the Protoss base, of course, we're getting the last of the refineries down now. I'm starting to see the Colossus come out here of the Robo that we've got down. We've also got Robo Bay, taking the extended thermal lance. This upgrade increases the range of the Colossi, which basically means they can sit further back and wreak death upon everybody from an even greater distance. It makes them much more viable because they're a hell of a lot safer, essentially, is the main reason for doing that. Now, meanwhile, of course, in the Terran's base, we're still not really seeing any action here. It's actually been an incredibly slow game thus far. Both players just sort of sitting back and defending. The Observer there was very, very nearly taken out, but not quite, as Terran, Mr. Saber here, doesn't actually have any sort of vision for that at this stage, although he does have a Widow Mine here at the front, which would take it out. He doesn't, as I say, doesn't have any vision of it, which is a real problem, unless he can just stick a scan down or some such like. Now it does look like we're getting a move out here from Saber, so this might turn into something a little bit more interesting. We're getting a bit more scouting information down. Let's see where he's going to go with this. Yeah, we're just checking out for 3rd bases here for Saber. Meanwhile, Wartooth continuing to build Colossi. We're getting further Stalkers coming out, as well as the extended thermal lance upgrade finishing. Forges are now coming down, so we're starting to see some upgrades here out of him. Meanwhile, concussive shells have started in the Terran base, and also we're going to be seeing, where are we? Infantry armor 1 from the first of, is there a 2nd NG bay? I can't actually see it at this stage. We're not seeing any attack upgrades. Yeah, he's going for the defensive upgrades first with an armory behind this. So once again, I'd imagine we would see Hellbats, since we seem to see Hellbats every sort of game at the moment. Certainly out of the higher league Terrans anyway, they're the go-to unit, it seems to be at this stage of the meta game of StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. So anyway, now we're going to see Saber moving out across the map here. This should be pretty good for him if he can just get out and hold the line here at the front, although he doesn't really want to move in under the Colossi directly. They're really, really difficult to deal with as a Terran, especially with this small of a force of Medivacs. Really probably wants to be perhaps trying to do some drops or something in the main instead of engaging this army directly, as at this stage he will just straight up lose when there's 2 Colossi down, and obviously with the scan there he has seen these Colossi, so won't be going directly into that. Meanwhile, 2 Vikings coming out now behind this. This should obviously be to deal with the Colossus, as Colossi are so tall that they count as air units as well, so they will be should be able to help defend that. Meanwhile, Saber is just going to have a walk around. Nice pleasant stroll. I guess it's a sunny day here as well on this map. And yet there we are, the rocks going down, so this does look like he'd probably be taking a 4th base down the bottom here if he's being so defensive. Either that or he's just hoping to stop Wartooth from moving out too easily. We're seeing advanced pylons coming down here out of Wartooth, although not really in any positions other than behind his 3rd base, which he'll now be taking. This is considerably later than the Terran's 3rd, though, which means that Saber should be massively ahead on economy before too long. If we just take the number of workers, they are pretty much even, but of course Saber does have OP mules as well here to help mine much quicker. So his economy actually at this stage of the game is better, and he's getting supply lead out as well to prove that even further. Meanwhile, we're getting infantry and infantry attack and defense twos. We're also getting immortals coming out now from Wartooth as well in response to this sort of action, as well as charge lots, and it looks like we're getting 2/2 ground upgrades as well. So yeah, general sort of macro-iness from both players, not really any sort of direct engagements or anything going on yet. We're seeing rocks and things be taken out for whatever reason. I'm actually not sure why that's so popular, really. Can you not siege up on that or something? I'm not sure. I mean, if you're going to wall in down the bottom, yeah, I thought it was really just to block things, but I'm not sure. Perhaps I can save time later on. Meanwhile, anyway, we're seeing a move out once again from Saber here, who might now actually be more prepared to do something. Although against 4 Colossi, he is going to struggle, especially when we've got a whole bunch of sentries here to control the movement of Saber's forces here on the ground. Basically, with the force fields that the sentries can cast, he can block off areas and ramps and stuff, and that just allows him to control whereabouts the Terran player is stood, and essentially it allows him to engage the right amount of units for the size of his army. However, at this stage, though, with 4 Colossi out, he really is quite safe. The only real problem is the 6 now Vikings that are out. So Wartooth will have to be really careful with his Colossi around those, and hopefully try and pick them off to stop the Vikings just going through the Colossi, as Colossi have absolutely no direct response to that. Meanwhile, now we're seeing Storm come out, I believe. Is that? Yep, Sonic Storm coming out for Wartooth. This is fantastic against Terran ground death balls. So that's, you know, good times really all round here for Wartooth. Now, meanwhile, Terran here, Mr. Saber, he's going to be having a little wander around once again. I'll be honest, there really just isn't anything much happening here at the moment. Both players are just sort of upgrading everything that they possibly can. We're even seeing Mobius reactors are coming out here, which increases the starting energy of ghosts. This is should allow them to be cloaked for longer, and I guess might allow them to nuke easier. You'll also be able to get more EMPs out, which are really, really good against the shields of Protoss, although generally you want to be using them for against like Archons and that sort of thing. Any shield heavy units that are reliant on that sort of thing. EMPs are especially good from Ghosts. Now we are finally seeing yet another move out here from Saber, who might be deciding to engage at last. He does have quite a large supply lead, although he's not that far ahead on SCV, so the army should be relatively even sized. Although a slight advantage obviously goes to Saber, and he'll be moving at the third base here, and there's absolutely nothing here yet, but it is coming in now. We're going to see a massive engagement here as the Colossi instantly start falling underneath the Vikings, which is stormed straight away by Wartooth here. And as Saber's troops move out of the way of the Colossi's massive extended thermal lance beams here, we're not really seeing that many losses for the Terran player, other than his Vikings, although he managed to take out 2 Colossi in response to that, which is frankly a hell of a lot for 6 Vikings. Although it frankly would have been nice if he could have held on the Vikings as well, but he can easily churn out another 4 without too much bother, where it'll take a lot longer for the Colossi to be reproduced on a single robo facility. Now, obviously the mothership core might have been more useful to be part of the combat there, although I didn't actually see it get involved. Meanwhile, we're seeing a bunch more High Templar now, so it looks like we're getting a lot of High Templar out, a whole bunch more Archons, and then perhaps some more Colossi at the top here. Meanwhile, we have a proxy here building just factory stuff, I guess. We're seeing a warpin of 2 Zealots next to that. I'd imagine this would be for Tech Labs, okay. Tech Labs? What's that? Proxy tank or something? Like, I guess we wait and see in that respect. Okay, so with these 2 Zealots should be able to deal with this factory quite comfortably now, which is basically just serving to block the 4th base of Wartooth here. Although actually the sheer volume of health on this thing, it should be able to lift off just before there's any actual flames start, so he should be able to save that. Meanwhile, down this end, we're seeing Wartooth finally move out to do some damage of his own after Saber's relatively failed attack there. This should be able to completely take out this base, although he's actually going to ignore it, it seems. I'm not... Did you see that there? Oh crap, I've pressed back. Oh well, it doesn't matter, we'll catch this again. So we'll see if Wartooth actually catches this base. He's not aware of it at this stage. He is, he's now seen it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's great then. So it does look like Wartooth might be deciding to move up the ramp and engage here. Let's see, we're getting a storm down straight away. 2 ghosts being taken out, 3rd in danger. Meanwhile, the Archons will engage at the front, but one of them will fall straight away, and the other 2 will get, 2 morphing will get pushed straight in there to morph right in on top of the Terran's units. Now, we will be seeing most of the rest of this Protoss army cleared up, it looks like. Although these Colossi are going to deal loads and loads of damage here. There's 7 kills on one, with another 4 on the second one, although this rest of this Protoss army will be cleared up by this relatively small Terran force, just because of the shape of the engagement there. You could barely get any troops onto this ramp compared to the relatively okay concave here from the Terran. Meanwhile, we've got some Zealots running around, doing a little bit of damage here at the SCV line, but they're going to pull out again to basically get the hell out of the way. Meanwhile, obviously Saber will be landing his base again and continuing mining once again from his fourth base. Meanwhile, we're seeing a fourth base come... a fourth base come down now out of Wartooth, with obviously a scan, so he knows thoroughly about this. We're seeing that at every other base here, just so the Terran is essentially confirming what's going on the map. He's seen the extra Colossi now. That was quite a nice scan there, catching the army in the middle. And yeah, everything's looking pretty cush for both players here at this stage. How many barracks do we have out for Mr. Terran player here? We have fucking loads. Okay, but with this many bases, really, you should be able to just churn out Marines all day long. Neither player is really struggling with anything much here. Both players are relatively even on most aspects, to be honest. It's a relatively slow game again at this stage. We've had a couple of initial attacks, so hopefully things should start picking up before too long. It does look like the units are pretty much the same again, although Saber's army will be slightly larger because it does have the slight supply lead at this stage. However, unless he actually chooses to make advantage of that, there's really nothing to be gained at this stage from having such an advantage without moving out and trying to do something. Meanwhile, this Reaper is going to be clearing up this probe here, who was probably going to be making a nexus or something with the lines. I'm not entirely sure there. Would have been seeing, but he's actually just died straight up, so that's not really a problem now. And yeah, well, not much else going on. We're seeing ship weapons come out now, so I'd imagine we might start seeing some sort of late game tech here coming out. Possibly battle cruisers or something, maybe. Nothing building yet, though. We will need a actual fusion core down before we can see anything like that. But the fact that he's going for the air upgrades, unless he's just planning on getting a massive Vikings, something like battle cruisers might be quite nice. Meanwhile, we have seen a drop here in the Wartooth's fourth base, although it's going to be cleaned up relatively efficiently with very, very few losses in the way of probes here. Workers killed, though Wartooth is actually ahead at this stage still, so that is a pretty decent advantage for him, although Saber has managed to maintain the supply lead, although they've got relatively even numbers of workers there, so the actual economies are relatively similar. Okay, so once again, very little happening. We've got a Dark Shrine coming down now out of Wartooth here. Usually it's a when behind thing, and I mean he's not really that behind at this stage, so we might just be seeing some DTs mixed in, or maybe he's an alternative to High Templars to getting the old Archons out. And we're seeing a little bit of back and forth here, and engagement coming in now, and it's that the Vikings will be taking down one Colossus, so we've got two left, and this is going to really start eating through the Terran's army here as the last of the Vikings do fall, and the Colossus will be perfectly safe here at the back. The Terran needs to really split his army and pull it backwards a little bit, although he's managing to pick off that last Colossus, and actually the rest of this army does look like it will be falling here for Wartooth. And with the Colossus falling as well now, Saber should be pretty free to move in. He's got a 45 supply lead here. With despite the massive DTs, these will be falling due to the scan here. It's very difficult to really use DTs against Terran when they can just scan to their heart's content, especially once you've got so many orbital commands up. And it does look like the fourth base here of Wartooth will be really under threat here from this little Terran army here, as Wartooth is really struggling to get any more units out. He's warping in more Zealots and DTs. He's also got a spare Archon and High Templar at the bottom here, but they're not really doing that much at this stage of the game. It does look like this should be cleared up now. Yeah, the Medivacs will be leaving. Screw you, Mr. Marauder. You have absolutely nothing to offer us. You're not being saved today, and the two Medivacs will escape. Meanwhile, we're seeing a fresh group of Marines. As Terrans are so very apt at regrouping. We're seeing a whole bunch of fresh Medivacs coming in as well. And it does look like the fresh army of Saber here will be able to remain comfortably on top. Meanwhile, Wartooth has completely given up on macro, it seems. He's pooling resources for some sort of thing. He's got a Colossus coming out. That's about it for now, unfortunately. Meanwhile, he's still on two mining bases, yeah. At the bottom end of the map, however, Saber is on 3 mining bases still, so he's actually still ahead on economy and will have a lot more income, as we can see by the massive amount of resources that he's starting to pile up here, especially with his huge army lead. At this point, Saber is really, really ahead in this game. Meanwhile, we're seeing a drop coming in on, looks like was going to be on the third base here of Wartooth. However, most of it has been cleaned up in advance by the two photon cannons that were sat there at the back. We're seeing a few probes fall here, not too many, as the ZTs do help clear that up as well with the aid of the Mothership Core. And meanwhile, in the bottom base here, we're seeing yet another drop. This is a much larger drop. These are generally referred to as a Doom drop, which is going to actually now take out the fourth base of our friend Wartooth here, although the Storms and feedbacks will be taking out a good number of the Medivacs as well, so we'll only actually be seeing 3 Marauders and a Marine escaping to go and invade this second base of Wartooth here, and that will be the last of that cleared up, although the unfortunate Colossus does fall there, so he's Wartooth is in a really sort of tight position now. He's got 6 High Templar out, 2 Dark Templars, and we're seeing a small amount of Colossi, Stalkers as well. Behind that, we're going to be seeing additional Colossus coming out since he's lost them all again. And that is about it for now, although we're seeing once again the 4th base come down here for Wartooth, as he really does try and get this economy off the ground once again, although Saber has fallen a little bit in terms of supply, as the DTs have come into his natural now, and they are going through the bases here, trying to clear things out, trying to get rid of some tech labs, trying to get rid of some reactors and things, as generally the DTs do move through to try and clear out the tech, although that, unfortunately, that DT is going to escape to the edge of the scan there, which is really unfortunate for Saber, as he has to use a second scan to finish clearing that up. Meanwhile, Wartooth is pulling out the front of his base a bit. We're going to see perhaps another engagement here at the front. It does depend very much if Saber can move his army up in time. Meanwhile, he will be taking a 5th base up at the top left-hand edge of the map now. And this is generally looking pretty good for Saber once again, as he's remained ahead in supply and has also, well, retained more bases than Wartooth is managing to. Great. Well, so let's just see what happens, I guess. At this stage, we're seeing more DTs come in, but they're just being cleared up again and again, really. At this stage, it's quite a waste of resources for Wartooth. I think he needs to be concentrating on building his death ball up again, and perhaps trying to harass at the outside edges of the bases of Saber here. It's the only way he's really going to get back into this game, I think, unless, of course, Saber gives him plenty of time to get a death ball back up, which it does seem to be that he was doing, because he's maxed out in his army again now. He should be moving out. Although we are going to see Wartooth moving in here, and with his massively smaller army, he's going to struggle with this, especially if... Oh, there's the storms! How the storm's going to clear? They cleared a bunch of that, but not enough, really, as Wartooth's army is starting to fall. Although Saber is losing a lot of men to the Colossi, which do fall relatively quickly. And now we're seeing... It's evening out, although it does look like Wartooth will be losing the last of his units here. And as the Archons do get cleared up and the last of the Stalkers is also falling, this massive of Zealots is going to be pushing back as well, as Saber does push through and maintains the supply lead, once again beating back the offensive Wartooth here. It doesn't look like, no matter what Wartooth tries to, it does look like he just can't quite get in, although I would like to have seen some more harass, maybe some more drop play, something like that, as basically his straight up engagements haven't been working for him all game. Meanwhile, Saber will be once again moving into the 4th base here with Wartooth here, and it does look like once again this base is going to fall with absolutely no response from Wartooth here. He's really struggling to fight this off now, as the base is massively overprobed as well. He could do with pulling some of those out before it all falls, although we have actually pulled out now as the Protoss army has finally turned up here for Wartooth. Now Saber meanwhile is going to be macroing up. He's going to be getting his extra bases out here. The APMs are pretty same for both players, although Saber is actually generally a little... Well, it was a little bit ahead, never mind, doesn't really tell us that much anyway, let's face it. Meanwhile, continued Colossus production out of Wartooth here. That's the name of the game here for Wartooth. Colossi, that's what he does. Meanwhile, we're seeing just general macro stuff from Terran. He could do with pulling some of these SCVs out and perhaps transferring them to this top base, although it's actually got a lot more workers in now than it did the last time I checked. And he could do with taking the refineries and stuff, although he's so far ahead on his economy and supply at this stage that I think I still think Wartooth's going to struggle to take this game unless he can really start pulling back and taking out one of these bases perhaps, although it does look like, to be honest, all of these bases now mining out at this point. Well, at this point, I guess, feasibly, if Wartooth can hold it, he can, and perhaps stop Saber from taking any extra bases, he might be able to retain his position if he can just get this base mined, and perhaps get this base mined as well, which he is going to be taking at the top corner of the map here, which is right actually next to Saber's new base, and 2 DTs will be going straight into this base here, so these should be taking this out without any real bother. I don't imagine we'll see any sort of response from Saber here, as it is really difficult to do anything about that. I don't think that that Wartooth will be that Saber will actually be able to finish this base before the DT finishes damaging it enough to basically Saber had to finish the base before the DT could damage it too much so that it could take off again. Meanwhile, we're seeing the armies of both players juggling backwards and forwards, although I'm not really sure if we're going to see an engagement immediately out of either of them, as they are both relatively even on supply now. Meanwhile, in the units tab, we're seeing a lot more probes than SCVs at the moment, so once again, I'd imagine Wartooth is actually behind on army size, as Saber does rocket into the lead once again on his supply here. So yeah, we'll be seeing how this engagement goes. I would imagine that, assuming the army size is that much bigger for Saber as it does look to be, he should be able to take out this army, although with 2 Archons and 2 Colossi with a 3rd on the way, Wartooth's army is still very strong. It very much depends on the engagement I think at this point. However, unless Wartooth can do some serious economic damage, I don't see how he can really come out of this alive. Although he is the person with the most mining bases at the moment, I feel. And we're seeing engagement now once again here from both players, and Storm's coming down on top of the Terran army. Loads of units going to be taking a lot of damage, but not that many are going to be dying, which is a real shame there for Wartooth. And he has lost both Colossi straight away, although there's a third one coming in now, which will be falling not too quickly as the Vikings both get taken out, and with the last of Saber's army getting cleared up here. It's not quite. No, sorry. I thought the Archons were going to be able to tank that damage, but apparently not. Saber does push through once again as Wartooth's forced to pull back, and it once again here Wartooth is just behind on army size. He's got all his upgrades, I believe. Yeah, we're seeing plasma shield upgrades coming out now, which is great, of course, for the Archons. Now, meanwhile, in the fourth base here of Saber, we're seeing that basically he's killed a lot of SCVs here with these DTs, it seems. And yeah, up to 63 workers killed now for Wartooth, which should really put him ahead, but as it happens, it's just formed more place for supply. And with a lull, he's going to leave the game. No GG, but well, never mind, I guess, we'll just go with it. So yeah, so that was a relatively interesting game. A little bit slow throughout, although once the action started, it did pick up a bit. Generally, Saber was just ahead on economy there. Although Wartooth was the one to kill way more workers, if we look at the units killed tab, he just couldn't stop the relentless expanse of Saber, who was essentially got his first expansion down first and was ahead on the economy from the very start of the game. Wartooth, frankly, could have done way more in the way of harass or drops or anything really. I mean, late game now when he's brought in these zealots and obviously the DTs at this top base, I feel like he could have done so much more there earlier in the game than this late game harass, which by this point it was already over. It was way too late for him to really do anything. Although interestingly enough, he does actually have the most fully mining bases when he left the game. Saber doesn't actually technically have a mining bases. He's got nothing in this expansion here. But never mind. Once again, another good game. Thank you everybody for watching. Once again, I like to think I'm getting better. Not the greatest cast, I'll be honest. I don't really know the ins and outs of their builds there, but we'll be picking it up. I'm going to watch this replay once again in my own time to see what exactly was done there. But I do feel like the Terran player was generally just sort of ahead on economy for the length of that game, as we saw there. I don't feel like I missed any undue harass, although if we just have a little look, no, I think everything basically, it was just Saber winning the game throughout the latter half of the game, which is really unfortunate for Wartooth, because I do feel like he tried really hard there, and like he got some good engagements and took out lots of, the storms were nice. He was targeting down the Vikings really well with his storms and things like that, and the Archons I saw as well, punching them out the sky with their lightning fists, as they like to do. But yeah, well, thank you once again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I've been RedRipz, your Dreadlock caster, and I will see you next time for another CasualCraft. GG, well played, both players. Thank you.